Hello, welcome to another edition of Behind the Sermon. We just get in here and we talk about the sermon from Sunday. And this is Caleb Baker. He's my son. He's our junior high pastor here. So JK's in New York praying with some other people, right? So today we're going to talk about the sermon. And here's the topic for the day, generations. Specifically, how is it that we exegete different generations within our sermons? So I'm going to start with you, Caleb. You preach to junior hires every week. That's a younger generation. What are some things you can tell us about relating to junior hires?
Yeah, so I think the two things that come straight to my head are, I think the first thing is that it's probably more of a, I know it doesn't seem quite as much, and your span is a lot bigger, but even from 6th to 8th grade, that span is still pretty dramatic. You know,
developmentally, they're different.
You know, because there's a lot of the 6th graders, they're turning 12 that year, and so they'll come in as 11-year-olds, and then we have 14-year-olds who are way far down the road as far as emotionally what they can dial into, even some of the sarcasm and the different jokes, they can get that a little bit more, but an 11-year-old's gonna be like, what are we laughing at? But they'll maybe laugh anyway. But it's a fun challenge. And I think the coolest thing about thinking about preaching to generations is that really it's the practice, exegeting anything is what a preacher does. And so whether it's a regional culture or a different culture within, you know, somewhere else in the world, age is just another one of those. And so for a preacher, as I found, it's like, the message is not the easy part, but that's the part that comes first. Then it goes, okay, this is the truth that I love about this text. What is this going to mean to a 13-year-old girl? What is this going to mean to an 8th grader? What, you know what I mean? And so I think that it's cool. We try to, I think preaching, a lot of times we think of like one big flight that you kind of take off, then you're in the air, then you land. With kids, with junior high students, I try to do little flights and try to bring something up, land it. Okay, we're going to start a whole new thought within the same linear thing, but let's take it up again, let's land it. Let's take it up again. And so just with some of their attention span and stuff like that, you kind of have to be more intentional. With you in here, that the couple of times I've preached to the adults, I mean, you're going, what's your guess, 15 to
18-year-old, maybe 15 all the way to 85 or something like that.
So that's massive. How do you, and you're pretty much stuck right in the middle there. And so when you think about that, how do you preach in a way that kind of hits both ends and then in the middle where you are?
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I think you kind of relate in the same way. I think there's a culture and a generation that you probably naturally resonate with, right? So at your age, it's probably easier, and there's two kinds of cultural things. For you young preachers, I want you to think about this when you start preaching. There's the culture that is the music, the movies, the design, the TV shows, all that kind of stuff. That's part of that cultural reality. The other cultural part is the developmental stage and what's happening in the life stage. And so in my thinking, I try to think through 3 or 4 different life stages and generations every Sunday when I preach. So I'm going, okay, here's what God's saying. Now, what do people in their 18 to 35-year-olds, what are they thinking? Maybe, and here's where some of the humor and connection comes in. You can throw in a song that you don't think that they think you know as a 50-year-old, and you can connect in a different way. But you do the same thing for an older generation. Like you said, I'm kind of in the middle. So I everything 80s, I get it. I can say Gilligan Island. I can talk about Moonwalk. I can talk about Parachute Pants, the Commodores, whatever you want. We can talk about it in that time. And people that are 40 and 50, they'll relate to that and they'll laugh. Everybody else will be puzzled. So you kind of have to pick and choose. But here's what I want to get into today that I think is really important. And I'm going to ask you a question about junior hires in just a moment. That's really important for preachers to consider. I think that there are generational things that are true always, regardless of the cultural kind of influences, that are true always. For instance, I can tell you my age group, my middle age group, there's always a concern for kids, paying bills, getting them through high school, buying them clothes, saving for college, getting them a car. There's at least 20 things. I would encourage you as a preacher to write down 6 or 7, maybe 10 or 20 generational realities for every age category you can always go to as an illustration. So let me ask you this. Yesterday we talked about Timothy being a young man and from 1 Timothy. What is the thing you can always count on about junior hires? What do you know you always can connect with junior hires when you say certain things?
Yeah, there are just these massive things like school. Every kid, and again, school looks totally different we were
sixth
just
grader
at a
and eighth
school this
grade.
morning
Right.
that looked way different than the school
Right.
I went to.
Right.
And some kids are homeschooled. Some kids go to really big ones. But every kid gets homework.
Yep, that's right.
Every kid gets.
And hates homework.
Yeah.
Right.
Every kid gets, most every kid, I should say, gets arguing with their siblings
Right.
or feeling like their parents don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Or
don't like their parents' rules.
yeah, and I've even preached a couple times before where we've talked about how, like grace or Jesus or something will change things. And so we just make fun of change a lot because junior high is everything
changes all the
physical,
time.
emotional.
Right.
And so it's just like, hey, all the boys sound like Mickey Mouse and are
Right.
4 feet tall, and the
Right.
girls feel like Christmas trees. But like, that's just part of whether you're in the 50s, 40s, India, here, right now.
2,000 years ago.
It's always when
that's
you're
the way it
11
is.
to 14, man. There's just so much change going on, and so yeah, there are things that you can kind of bet on. Man, this is going to pull all these students in right now
Yeah.
because of this one thing, which is fun, man. I think it's cool to learn those things as a preacher.
Yeah, and that's the thing we want to leave you with today. Consider exegeting the generation,
Yeah.
because understanding what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And if you don't know somebody, ask your grandparents, ask your parents, ask your kids, and they'll give you some insight into some of the normal fears, the normal concerns, the normal things that are going on. Exegete the generations, you'll be a better preacher. God bless till next time.